Hey guys, what is up? It's me Jaylus, and today I'm gonna teach you some tips on how to create a better composite. So for the purpose of this tutorial, we're gonna be using the same images for each of the tips. This is for you to compare the before and after results. So without further ado, let's go to tip number 1. Creating a smart object. So basically, a smart object preserves all the details of an image. Let's take a look at this example. So these are both ordinary layers. Now to convert one to a smart object, just click the image, right click on the layer, and convert to smart object. So a smart object is characterized by this little icon over here. Now basically, when you make the smart object smaller, like this, and change it back to its original size, it retains all the quality and the details. Compared to an ordinary layer, when you make it small and make it big again, you lose all the details and the quality of the image. And now for tip number 2. Determine your light source. So let's grab the same image in our first example. Let's say you want to put the spider over his house just like this. Now just gather some information from your background as to where the light source is coming from. In this case, the light source is coming from the right side. After you determine your light source, now you can move on to tip number 3, which is creating shadows and highlights. Now we're gonna be using the same images from our previous examples. This is for you to compare the before and after results. First, let's match the saturation of these two layers. As you can see in the background, there's no high intensity colors, so let's just reduce the saturation of the spider layer by going to this icon and go to hue or saturation, create a clipping mask by clicking this icon, and just decrease the saturation a little bit. Now let's move on to putting some shadows. So to create a shadow, just click on your spider layer or your object layer. Now create an adjustment layer again, choose your saturation, and just decrease the lightness until it matches the black in the background. Now if you're satisfied with it, just press Ctrl-I on your keyboard to invert the mask. Now choose a brush tool by pressing B. Make sure your foreground color is white and you are using a soft brown brush. Now just lower your flow to about 8% and just paint in some shadows. So shadows really plays an important role when you're creating photo manipulation. It creates a depth and a more realistic look on the overall image. So it needs a lot of time and a lot of patience to make this thing work. So just keep on creating shadows to all the necessary parts. So as we've figured it out, light source is coming here, so all these parts here, here, and here is gonna be dark. So I think you figured it out here. Let's just fast forward and just take your time in creating the shadows so that it looks realistic. Okay, so if you want to delete some extra shadows, just hit X on your keyboard to change the foreground color to black. And then you can erase some shadows by just brushing it over like this. Okay, so this is the before and this is the after. Now it looks better and it blends into the background. The next one is we're gonna be adding some highlights. So just click your subject layer again, create an adjustment layer, and now choose brightness. So you can use either hue or saturation or brightness for this one. But since our light source is using a white light or just a bright light, then let's go to brightness. And let's just increase the brightness, something like this. And just press Ctrl-I on your keyboard to invert the mask. Now just paint in some highlights with a white foreground and a soft round brush. Just hit X on your keyboard to remove some highlights. So just take your time in giving your subject some nice highlights and shadows. And that's looking great already. And now let's just erase some of the spider's legs that is on the ground. We could create a clipping mask and choosing a brush that is really small to create a thinner strokes that imitates the grass. Choose your foreground color, which is black, and just erase some parts here. Okay, now we move on to putting shadows in the background. So just click your background layer, create a your saturation, create a clipping mask, and just decrease the lightness like this, and press Ctrl I on your keyboard to invert the layer mask. Now just paint some shadows over here, maybe just lower the flow. Some shadows here for the spider's body, and make sure that the parts where it touches the background is really dark. So just increase the flow and just create some realistic shadows like this. Okay, so this is the before and this is the after. And now we're done with our shadows and highlights. Let's move on to tip number 4. Add some atmosphere to the whole image. So first, create a new layer by clicking this icon. Now, click your background, choose a brush tool by pressing B or by clicking this icon, and lower your flow to about 5%. Now hold the Alt key in your keyboard, click a sample color from your background, then head back to your layer. And just softly make a smoke effect like this. Creating a smoke effect like this helps in blending the subject more to the background. So here's the before and here's the after. Tip number 5, create an artificial lighting. So to do this, just create an adjustment layer by clicking this icon, head over to brightness, and don't create a clipping mask in order to affect all the layers. Now put the brightness to about -70. Choose a brush tool by pressing B and your flow at 5%. And make sure your foreground color is black. Now click the layer mask. So let's just copy the light source which is coming from the right side and just paint in some light. You could also make the brush smaller by holding the Alt key in your keyboard, right click and dragging it to the left side to create thinner rays. Okay, so this is the before and this is the after. And I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've learned something from this tutorial, and if you do, hit that like button and notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And always remember, imagination is your limit. See you on my next video.